So ask God to show you, what are you for? Are you for a ton of helpful babysitting? Are you for studying things that you won't have time to if you ever do get married? What are you for? You are for so many things. And just ask God to put those in your lap and to show any selfishness or to take off any blinders that might be hiding those potential duties from you. Like take off any selfishness or any bad assumptions, and then just be ready to lay your life down. And like I said, this will continue to go through whatever stage of life. Say you can't have kids. You get married and you can't have kids, and you're like, what the what? Okay, then that wasn't what you were for. You are for something else. This is not God giving you his second best. You know what I mean? And so just reminding yourself that God's love is perfect. He has not forgotten you. Your life is for a particular purpose, and just be willing for God to use you however he wants to. And then just have fun.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Feminine Glory podcast. I am one of the hosts, Esther Edmonds, and I am joined by my delightful co-host, Lydia Edmonds.
Hello, everyone.
And today we have a very special guest on the podcast. We have Gwen Newell. But who is Gwen Newell, you may ask? She is a wife, homemaker, mom, and author. She has written a fantastic novel, The Forbidden Child, and is currently in the throes of writing a new novel. She not only has a side hustle job, but she also plays an important role in her community as a wonderful hostess. We are delighted that she is joining us today. So, Miss Newell, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
So you recently got back from a trip from Alaska, is that right?
Yes, I did. I work for a quilting sewing machine company, and they do quilting cruises, and as part of the marketing team, but mostly as a sign of just huge generosity, our company mostly paid for us to go. So it was a huge treat. Sailing amongst the Alaskan fjords with glaciers gleaming in the distance, and
oh my word,
bald eagles a mile a minute.
Oh my word. Sounds so idyllic.
Mile a minute that doesn't really make sense, but thick and fast would probably be a better metaphor for how often we saw. Not a mile a minute. That does not make sense at all.
So that is just, do you sew at all? Like, do you enjoy that?
Hate it.
You do?
Whoa, really?
Yes, I know I shouldn't, and I'm getting better at it, but I grew up hating it. My grandmother tried to teach me on I think it was a featherweight. It may have just been a Singer, which we now work for a featherweight company. Hated it. I was 10. I wanted to go write stories and play outside in the Floridian jungle. I did not want to sit and, what do you mean it's inside out? Why are we sewing it inside out? We wear our clothes right side out. Why are we... Seam allowance, what is this? So anyway, hated it. But now I'm actually doing a quilt, which means I have to ask my boss about literally every step. Like I know nothing. There's not like I cannot sit down with any confidence and even order fabric, because I'm like, I need to order white, cool, or warm. I don't know. So I'm hopeless. It's a huge area of like feminine industriousness that I have yet to really tap into.
That makes me feel a little bit better, because Esther, she does a great job. She's, even makes her own patterns, and I'm like, wait, what are we doing? Like, I feel like I should learn it, but I have not the passion for it, and so I'm like, but I really feel the need to do it, and so...
But I feel like I'm kind of like the opposite. Like, sewing is kind of more my thing, but then I need to do so much better at my writing skills, like just for anything, like an Instagram post or just text messages or just being more articulate. So we need to reverse the roles there.
As long as you do not use AI to make yourself more articulate. Do not cheat.
So true. So true.
So speaking of journeys, how did your journey with writing begin, and was there a specific moment or experience that sparked your love for writing?
A specific love, it began at 7. It was like almost right at 7. I remember my little baby sister was born 6 weeks before I turned 7. And around that time, my grandma came for a visit, probably to see the baby, and she handed me this super girly, very 90s, this was in the 90s, journal. with like, it was like black with like hot pink flowers on it. And I was just like, I fell in love with it. And I wanted to write down what had happened that day. So I just started writing down. Anyway, and then it quickly became stories. And I told stories about how we were going to move to Idaho via a flood that covered the US and took us, now that I think about it, that's not where Forbidden Child started, but it does seem related.
Yeah.
And we floated on laundry baskets all the way from Florida to Idaho. Then we did
Wow.
move to Idaho. So that was a little prophetic. So it began at 7. I think a big, not like one soul experience, but one piece of knowledge that I had that really told me this is possible, even if it took me decades, was reading Little House on the Prairie, like all those books. Because I heard that she was apparently in her maybe 50s or 60s. Don't quote me on that, but it was like later in life when she started writing her stories. So I said, even if I'm 60 before I'm good enough, and even if I have to wait for the world to change, she wrote from covered wagons to then she's writing when cars are on the streets, So I was like, even if I have to wait until there's some appeal to my childhood, and even if I only write about what happened to me, I will write. And I knew it was like, I am made to be a writer. God made me this way. I'm going, so I'm going to do it. It's not like I hoped to be successful. I hoped to be published, but there was never a question about, this is what I'm made to do. I journaled constantly. I wrote so many stories, very bad Jurassic Park fan fiction, very bad Last of the Mohicans fan fiction. And so that's basically what started. But it was knowing that Laura Ingalls had grown up and done it, that I was like, she was a normal girl and she could do it. So it's not just C.S. Lewis or Tolkien who just were like, they're British and they're smart and they're dead and they're men. And everything was just so other. But Laura Ingalls was American. She was a girl, and there we go. And she liked Indians. And I think she did. They were afraid of Indians, and I liked Indians. So I felt connected.
That's amazing.
That really is. I feel like it is true. I think even India said something similar to, like, you don't feel like you can do much unless you are from Europe and you have a British accent, and you know what I mean? And it's like, it really is a weird, I don't know where that idea originated from, but it really is a weird thing of like, you don't feel like if you grew up in America, you can do much.
Or at least not by way of fantasy, which I think that does genuinely begin with maybe George MacDonald, because he inspired a lot of Lewis, but Lewis and Tolkien for sure, they began what we now call like the modern fantasy genre. They defined it, they revived it, it didn't exist before them, they wanted it, so they're like, let's make it ourselves. They created basically their own niche. And so kind of naturally, especially since they died only somewhat recently, like 63 and somewhere in the 70s, maybe, like not that long before I was born, 10, 20 years. It can just kind of seem like, unless you're British, or at least have the decency to set your story in some mythical version of Wales, for crying out loud. Like, everybody thinks like to be fantastical, you have to go across the pond. And that's just simply not true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you share what inspired the idea for The Forbidden Child and what you hoped readers would take from the experience of reading it? Which before you answer that question, I'm going to pause. If you have not actually read The Forbidden Child, you need to stop this episode, push pause, and just go listen to it or read it. It is a fantastic book. And I actually read it during Christmas time, which made me very happy.
Perfect.
I
Perfect.
left it and I was like, I'm just way satisfied and I just want to start it over and read it again.
It was amazing.
Oh, good. I'm very glad. Thank you for that flattering synopsis. So I began, the idea that began Forbidden Child was, I had to write a novel. It was for a class with N.D. Wilson. And I had been working on this trilogy, with a 13-year-old boy. And it was just massive and very difficult because I am not a boy, and it was proving to be impossible for me to write about a boy. So Nate was like, I highly recommend that you write a novel about a girl. So I was like, great, I'm going to join your week-long intensive. This was before the new St. Andrews MFA program existed. It was just a week-long intensive that he was offering as part of their normal graduate program. So I sat down and I was like, it's very disciplined. I was not waiting for the muse to strike. I had to come up with something. In a week, you had to you present your beat sheet, your plot, your character, the ending. Like, you had to really pitch it, and then having started writing it so that even after the class, you were pretty much good to go, because Nate hated it until he loved it at the front end. Anyway, so I just sat down and wrote down everything that I loved. French resistance during World War II, D-Day, Song of Roland, Pride and Prejudice. And then what do I know? I know about being a sister. I didn't know about being married or being a mom at the time. I know about growing up in Florida. So I just jotted everything down. And somewhere along the lines, I just got this image of a girl carrying a baby through a snowy wood. And I knew instantly that this is not, you don't normally carry a baby through a snowy wood. Like, there's literally no houses around. It's like, what kind of babysitter does that? So I'm like, they're on the run. Like, this is somehow, they're on the run, and somehow she's the reluctant babysitter.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, if they're on the run, who's after them and why? And why does she have the baby? And I said, well, she's on the baby because people don't want babies. Why don't they want babies? Because population control. Great, I'll work with that. But then I'm like, work with the whole US, work with Congress and politics and all sorts of government level stuff that I don't understand. I was like, I need to create my own world. What if there was a ship? I define this world. What if there was a worldwide flood that sent everybody on this ship? And then I was like, what if a girl found a baby on a ship with population control? And then all of a sudden I had it. And so, and then it quickly clicked with with a true story that I had read about a former KGB agent growing up in the USSR whose job it was to persecute, beat, savage Christians in probably the 1970s, maybe the late 60s. And he had defected to Canada and jumped off a ship in the middle of a winter storm. But he had that same arc of like going from persecutor to, spoilers for Forbidden Child, by the way. He had gone from persecutor to finding a Bible to being convicted by it and knowing I have to turn from this, even though I don't know quite what I'm turning to, I have to turn away from this. So once I had the idea of a girl, reluctant babysitter, ship, then I was like, oh, I just follow the template provided to me by Apostle Paul and the persecutor, which is the true story I just told you about. Do you want me to jump to the lesson that I wanted people to take away from it? Or do you need a breath after that long spiel?
No. I'm just going to give one quick interjection, which I think you had suggested that I read the Persecutor, because I think I had mentioned in one of the comments that Forbidden Child was one of my first dystopian novels that I had read. And so you recommended The Persecutor, and that was a very good book. It was highly intense, but it was an amazing read. I told my brothers, I was like, you guys have to read this. So it was definitely a great read.
Good. I'm glad that you liked it. I gave a copy to my pastor years ago, and I don't think he's read it yet. I think he probably lost it, but I try to, everybody we tell about the book, they get it and they love it, and they have to get it used off Amazon. It's not widely available, but at the same time, you can find it. You can always find it. It's just used.
Yeah, I found like a really old copy on Thrift Books, which made it all the more special because I was like, it was an older print of it, and so it just made it really fun.
Yeah, and that's why at the end of the book, when I gave my acknowledgments and gratitude, I said, thank you to Sergei Kordakov, who jumped first. I was like, that man, I mean, he's long dead. But I was like, hats off. Like, what a man to turn. I mean, he became a Christian. It was so amazing. So
it really was.
That kind of ties into the big lesson. I mean, I write for plot, which then gives birth to character. This is just the order in which I do it, which gives place to theme, which then gives place to the lesson I'm trying to teach. I do not go about saying, I want to tell a story that makes people want to have a baby now, whatever.
Yeah.
That might be a byproduct if you're the right age or the right gender. But I think along the way, I'm like, just looking, what does Piper have to learn to do? That is what I want characters to learn to do. And it's not simply to love babies, but it's to do the right thing, because the right thing is the only thing to do. Even if it seems impossible, or even if it seems like you really won't survive, survival is not the point. And you don't even have to know the end of the story before you take the first right step. Like, she doesn't know if she's even going to live to see the end of the day when she takes on this baby on the prison ship. But she does know this is the right thing to do. The next right thing to do is to go steal milk so it can eat. The next right thing to do is to hide it because the Secret Service is coming. The next right thing to do is to not tell the godmother. And so you just keep doing the next right thing, and you do not care 2 cents for whether you live or die, because death is no defeat and survival is no victory. Then you will live a good life, even if it might be short.
Yeah.
And so that conviction, I mean, I would probably write all my stories with that conviction. You could write a World War II fiction story with that sort of attitude. Braveheart has that attitude. The Patriot has that attitude. Like all of our favorite Mission Impossible has that attitude. So that became the thing that I wanted. The big thing. There were other smaller lessons, but I can get into those later if we have time for them.
And I must say, even your descriptions of like when she first like holds the baby for the first time, or like, even when I guess when she finds it the first time, she sees the ocean. Like your descriptions, even of those moments, like you feel like you're there. Like, and then her questions when she like is like, "Where's the neck?" You know what I mean? Like just trying to figure all of these things out. I'm like, I guess that would be a normal question for someone, but it's just things you don't think about. But then in a way, I'm like, but I feel like I'm right there with her, like experiencing all of this for the first time. So that was just masterfully done. I loved it.
Thank you. Mission accomplished.
But I feel like too, I want to go back to your kind of obey today in the moment mindset, because I think that's really important, because that is a lesson that needs to be learned in the day to day. It's super relatable, because you do just need to, even though sometimes it feels like you're a toddler being led in the dark and you don't see anything in front of your face, and you just, all you know to do is just take the next right step. And so even when stealing milk, looks like a really bad thing to do, and if somebody were to catch you, you're like, it doesn't look like you're doing the right thing. And you just need to not care what it looks like and just do the next right thing, because you know the cost.
Yeah. It's like, doesn't matter what it feels like. It just matters whether it's right. And you leave. I wrote a short biography. It was like an essay biography of Stonewall Jackson back when I was like a teenager. And one quote that he said stuck with me. And this embodies what we were just talking about. And that is, duty is ours, consequences are God's. So if you just think, if you know your duty, do that. The consequences of saying, here I stand, I can do no other. The consequences of chopping down the tree like Boniface. The consequence of signing the Declaration of Independence. The consequence of trusting your husband when you feel like this is not the moment. I feel like this is a mistake. It's like, no, duty is yours, consequences are God's. And that'll just see you through no matter who you are, and no matter what. You might not ever be in as dramatic a situation as Piper, and I hope you aren't. But like, if you are changing diapers, if you are a high schooler studying Latin, if you are whatever it is, or you have to stick up to a bully on the playground and he's bigger than you, but you're bigger than the victim. It's like, well, duty is yours, consequences are God's.
That's very great.
Yeah.
So you're working on a new book aimed at boys. So what sparked that idea, and then why specifically that audience?
Okay. It's, for one thing, it's not aimed, it kind of is aimed at boys, but I say that because girls will read boys' books, but boys have a harder time reading girls' books. So if I write a story about a boy, I will get hopefully twice the audience.
Okay.
It was because the thing that started this, it's a retelling of the Orpheus myth. And just a quick recap for people who may not know the Orpheus myth. Orpheus, it's a Greek myth, so it's very tragic. What would a Greek myth be except if it weren't tragic? So it is about this gifted poet musician whose wife is bitten by a snake and, of course, dies, goes down into the underworld very young. So Orpheus goes into the underworld and uses his gift of speech and oratory and music to persuade the god of the underworld to let her come back out. He's like, she died too young, please let her come back. It's very, if you can't see the parallels with Christ going into an underworld to save his bride, the parallels are there, even though this is pre-Christ. But like, everybody yearns, everybody knows that this is kind of the story of the world. And the way the Greeks saw it was it had a very sad ending. Or the god of the underworld says, yes, she can leave, except you have to go in front of her and you cannot look back at her until you're both clear of the underworld. The Orpheus goes up. It's like, picture getting way lost in Carlsbad Caverns. That's basically their understanding of the underworld. It's a physical place you could get to. It's deep underground. So Orpheus leaves and he forgets and turns and looks back right as his wife is about to step across the threshold, and she goes all the way back down and is now out of reach. And then, of course, he's super heartbroken. If you've seen the movie Moulin Rouge, deeply flawed, that is the same story. Ewan McGregor goes into a place called the underworld, falls in love with a prostitute, has dreams of rescuing her, but she dies and he stays heartbroken. So it's just, and when I saw that in college and everybody was like, it's such a Christ story. A man falls in love with a prostitute and tries to save her. And I'm like, but he doesn't. This is Orpheus. This is tragic. This is anti-gospel. And ever since then, I was like, I am going to write a retelling with a happy ending. They both make it out.
I love it.
So in 2011, I started writing a story about a man who goes after his wayward wife and saves her. And I was like, I've now learned that is not my genre. I'm not writing adult. Maybe I will one day. But I was like, let's retell that for middle grade. I can handle middle grade right now. So let's tell it about a boy who has to go save his mom. And the reason I chose boy, I did not say I want to write for boys, therefore let's do this. I just looked at the story and I was like, just the nature of it. I was like, I feel like this has to be at least male in pursuit of female. And then the boy has a sister. So there is that feminine side, and it made it easier to write because I could talk, sibling banter is there and all that. But so it's about a boy who has to go save his mom. That's very middle grade. Like boy in pursuit of mom is very, 11 to 13 years old. And so that's why I chose that. I had this yearning to do Moulin Rouge right and then bring it down to PG-13.
I love
Because
that
Moulin Rouge is not appropriate.
So is it like kind of a C.S. Lewis degree vibe?
Yes. In fact, The Silver Chair is its own retelling of the Orpheus myth. Have you read The Silver Chair?
Yes.
So it's very light, but it's there. You had a queen die too young, and her son goes to avenge her, and then he's the one stuck in the underworld, and the kids have to go and find him, and they come back out. So, but it's there. The elements are there. The snake is there. The wife is there, and then he makes it middle grade. So it's not a husband in pursuit of his wife. It's kids in pursuit of the lost prince who is trying to save his mother. So he spun it around a little bit, and he himself, I think, I didn't see this written anywhere. I just was looking at the facts. The medievals, being Christian, did a Christian retelling of the Orpheus myth, and they had him win this time. So you have Orpheus myth, you have the happy medieval Sir Orfeo myth, and then you have the Silver Chair. And once you read all of them, you can definitely see the connecting links. And then I have my story where it's like they have to follow 4 signs to an underworld to rescue somebody who should not be there. And then everything else is just scattered on top of it.
C.S. Lewis was a big fan, it seems like, of retelling the myths, because he did the same thing in Till We Have Faces, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then other elements would just come in. Fauns are there. That's very Greek. Or just like the idea of being on a quest on a ship and you have to go to 7 islands. Like that's so Jason the Golden Fleece and all sorts of other things. Or just, like little snatches will come through. He was so steeped in it that I don't think he would. Besides the Silver Chair, I think that's the strongest link I can find. Or Until We Have Faces. Otherwise, you just see elements of it because he was baked in that.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So, what do you find to be the most rewarding part about writing?
Creating soul food. Yes, I am made to write. Even if I were not to publish another book, I would be writing for my husband and son. I'd be writing a blog for the 5 people who read it, whatever, But when I think about a 12-year-old out there who is probably similar to, I remember being 12 and thinking, I was so picky about books. But I was like, if I can write a book that would have pleased even me back then, I want that. Like, I want books to shape kids and adults, but like especially kids. Like back in 2020, were you guys aware of the psalm sing arrests that happened here in Moscow?
Yes.
I was standing 10 feet away. Like I literally could have been next if we had kept on singing long enough because they were just working their way through. And I remember thinking I had not quite finished contemplating my game plan because I didn't know there would be arrests. I thought citations, and I'm like, I know, I used to work for a lawyer. My dad was a lawyer. I felt super confident and just like, I'm going to stand my ground. But then they're arresting. And I'm like, I literally don't even know the constitutional rights. They weren't clear in my head, but I had to decide very quickly. I was like, I'm descended from French Huguenots. My ancestors fought against Hitler, King George III, and the Viet Cong. I can't move. But some of the big things that informed that mindset was having read say stories of the French resistance or the Dutch resistance in World War II, or reading The Hiding Place when I was 12, reading Lord of the Rings, reading Narnian books, reading all these books where I'm like, I know what to do because I've read so many fictional characters who did the right thing, and real characters, but a lot of fiction. So if I can write, I take joy in writing books that I hope will it put just like one more brick on the wall in terms of building up someone's conviction in terms of what they should do and who they should be in moments like that, like the little moments of like getting along with your siblings and obeying your husband and doing all that is so important. But every once in a while the volume gets turned way up and you have to decide actually whether you're going to move during a public psalm sing or not. And so I was like, well, I like writing those sorts of things. If I can encourage people to love their family more fiercely, to obey God no matter what, to do duty and leave the consequences up to him, then that's worth it.
That's a great mindset, because I know like even how much reading our parents read to us a lot as kids, and so how much that shaped my worldview and formed my imagination. And so I think having good books is very important, especially like for kids. There's always that story that they're imitating, or like the boys want to play knights and the girls are princesses or whatever. So I think that's just having good books like that to read that shape the worldview and the imagination of kids is very important, especially in an age of like their technology is shoved in your face all the time.
Yeah, like even not my son just turned 18 months old, but he already has his heroes, and they are Little Blue Truck and Hello Ninja. And like, if he comes up and he's fussing, I'm like, no, you be a tough ninja. Ninjas hop, ninjas chop, ninjas love to belly flop. Like you, anyway, or like Little Blue Truck has to work on an attitude in one of the little kids' books, and I'm like, be like Little Blue Truck, no more fussing. So yeah, it starts so young, like telling them to identify with this hero, not with that fusser.
So speaking of good books, is there a book that's had a major influence on you personally?
Yes, so many. A lot of C.S. Lewis, obviously fiction, the Lord of the Rings and Narnia and Little House books. And then like Death by Living and Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl. Notes of the Tilt-A-Whirl came out when Nate Indy Wilson was my rhetoric teacher at NSA at New St. Andrews College. So I remember he gave it in lecture form before the book came out. And it was the view of Calvinism as being like, God is not just remote and okay with what's going on, or he decreed it at the beginning of time and now it's just happening. It is happening in the same way that when you're singing a song, that reality is being created in some sort of form in the people's minds and the audience minds right there. You are being spoken minute by minute. And that just brought the God's governing and also but his love. It made it so much more personal. And I went up to him afterwards and I was like, I have never heard the sovereignty of God explained in that way. Where did you read that? And he was like, well, it's coming out in a book. I wrote it. I also have not really heard this anywhere else. So that really profoundly shaped me. Obviously, all of Nate Wilson's middle grade books, Doug Wilson's books, Chesterton, and then a smattering of like the Stonewall Jackson biography by R.L. Dabney, Boniface by Eric Metaxas, The Persecutor by Sergei Kordakov, Unbroken, Band of Brothers. I'm just looking at my bookshelf here and like looking at what's jumping out at me. The Song of Roland is amazing. Paradise Lost, Lone Survivor by Marcus Luttrell, like so many books about just like heroism and doing the right thing.
That's great. That's amazing.
It really is. Yeah. I think it's important, I think, to be well read, which I think you definitely are, which is, it pushes me to be better because I think it really does help shape your worldview. Because otherwise I think you can get really caught in the day to day and not look past the end of your own nose.
Yeah, and on that note, be widely read, which I was very much a rut, like get stuck in a rut and only read this kind of book or only read that kind. And so I'm still getting out of that. And, but like reading widely, reading books that you might not necessarily think would apply to you, but they're good. Like I remember reading a book on envy, Seeing Green by Tilly Dillahay.
That was a great one.
So good. And I was like, I did not realize that envy is an inescapable concept, by which I mean
Right.
it is not whether you have struggled with envy. It is which. It is
Yep.
how and which kind of envy and to what degree. So that was, and then coincidentally, it's helped me craft every villain since, because envy is just so pervasive. It's not like gluttony where you really just might not struggle with gluttony, or lying, you might not ever really struggle with being a liar. Some kids are, some kids aren't, but like envy is just, it's pervasive. So yeah, reading those kinds of books has been, yeah, super helpful.
And I guess also too, when you have more of a wide range and maybe an author you might not particularly agree with on all points, it does then help you to like hold it to the standard of scripture and then learn to see like where there's, I guess, faulty ideas in a book.
Yes, including our dear old Chesterton, because when he starts railing against Calvinism, you can just like, okay, moving right along. Or like I was reading another book by another Catholic, Peter Kreeft, and one book he had written was amazing. It's called The God Who Loves You, and it was like, this is perfect. And then I read one called Love is Stronger Than Death, and I'm like, sounds great. And then it was really kind of an ode to death as sort of a sister or something, and I was like, I could. No. Anyway, I'm just gonna, you don't agree. And then let's not even mention the pagans, like reading Plato, Aristotle, or Herodotus, or Thucydides, or the Iliad, the Odyssey, all that kind of stuff. Where you're like, obviously, there's stuff here that we disagree with. Or being able to read Nietzsche. Nietzsche, you absolutely disagree with, but he's great inspiration for villains. He's magnificent.
I saw a quick side note. You were reading Prince Harry's biography. I think you posted on Instagram, and I was like, that's the best. You were like, I'm brushing up on my villains.
Yes, because really I was reading my current, in the Orpheus novel I'm retelling, the bad guy is modeled after Satan in Paradise Lost.
Okay.
The guy who feels gypped, who should have had a crown, should have had all this glory and responsibility and privilege and all that. And he's like, but instead, I don't. I'm just an archangel or whatever he is. And then I was like, as I was writing that out, I'm like, okay, so what kind of personality is that? He's basically, the gypped younger brother. He's the one who's never going to be the king. He's basically the spare. And I'm like, that is Prince Harry. He literally wrote a book called Spare because he's the spare. You have your heir and your spare. And I was like, let me get this book. And it was so childish. It was also so girly. Like,
Oh no.
just because whining and fussing is more of it's just not masculine. So it's not just that it's girly. It's just not masculine at all. So anyway, he was just such a whiner. Anyway, but it was great inspiration.
So did you make it through the whole thing?
I did. It was so fascinating. And I just got into his mindset so that I could get into the mindset of like his justifications, the way he lists. It was kind of like a till we have faces, but no resolution at the end. It was basically like, see and judge for yourself. Have I not been wronged? And I'm like, whoa. You just let the whole world know that you are absolutely immature and insufferable.
Oh my word.
Someone needs a heart check.
Yeah. So, you said in one of your emails that being a better cook makes you a better, more well-rounded person, which will in turn make you a better, well-rounded writer. And then you said, so yes, it's related to novel writing. So can you explain the why behind that idea? Because I found that really interesting.
There's two levels. The first is the selfish motivation, which is the more you know, the more you can write about.
Okay.
The more interested you are, the more interesting you are, the more things you can write. Just like research or writing something has been a great motivation for me to stop everything and suddenly research something that I had always poo-pooed before, or just didn't, was like, I don't have time for that. And it's like, all of a sudden I am interested in the Berlin Wall. I am interested in Korean concentration camps. I am. And now there's my excuse to go dive into something. So there's that self-motivation of just like being copious because it helps you. It's not selfish, but I mean, it's very obvious and kind of very utilitarian. It's just for the sake of your writing, But the bigger thing is wherever you go, there you are. So if you are truncated and you don't know how, let's say cooking or sewing, or you don't know how to be friendly, or you don't know anything. It's not just cooking. It's like any field outside of writing that you just sort of shut down and you're just focused on maybe a very few precious things. Um, that is going to show up not just in your writing, but also God cares ultimately deep down who you are. So here we have to distinguish um, our definition of what it means to be a good writer. And by that, I don't mean you won a Newbery Award. That's what the world calls good. On the face of it, this was a good book. But look at that person's marriage. Look at their life on Instagram. Look at just to call out names, since this is a Christian podcast, the author of We Were Liars, which is now a Amazon original. She wrote this hit series. It took off. It was like 11 years ago. Now it's being made into TV. You would have, and it's good writing. It is capable. I read it because the technique is valuable. But really, is it good? Like, no, it's not good. You look at the author on Instagram and she is so obviously broken, sad, empty, despairing, full of just nihilistic, just sad. And so I'm like, okay, so working on you as a person, whether that means developing a skill like cooking that you've left behind, or being a better father if you're a dad, or being whatever it is, working on all of you, you bring that to the table when you write. And that is ultimately what matters. Even if the world initially doesn't care who you are, they just care about whether you wrote Hunger Games and if it's popular, right? But it's like, no, it really does matter who you are. Are you on your third marriage and broken? Like, that's just so sad. Like, how often are we so disappointed to be like, Tom Cruise is such a hero. Ew, what did he do to Nicole Kidman? Like, oh my gosh, this is just, so that feeling of like, oh, Brad Pitt, nope, not my hero after all. Like, you actually want to be somebody who is well-rounded and heroic and kind and copious and whatever the virtue is outside of just, can I put amazing words on a page? So that's what I tell myself when I'm like, if I'm going to pick up crocheting, because guess what? I'm bad at all things sewing and thread related. I'm like, yeah, this is who I want to be. And then I will bring that better person to the keyboard and hopefully be a better writer, because that too should be on the altar before God. So everything you do, cooking, sewing, teaching your kids soccer, whatever the extra thing is, it does change you. And then that changes your writing, and it matters.
I think that's really important because, like, I think in our culture today, we associate people, like, with just the one action they do. It's like actors. Yep. We associate them with, let's just Captain America. You associate Chris Evans with Captain America, but you're not looking at the whole, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, but you're right, life outside of that, do you want to support, what they're doing in terms of, like, well, if they have a really bad, they're trans or whatever, or something like that, do you really want to support, are you looking at the big picture? Especially
like, you gotta love like the frilly girls that are just like, oh my word, I love Chris Evans, and you're like, I would check on that.
Yeah.
No, and you don't even fall in love with Captain America. Like, he's a fictional thing. You're not allowed to have fictional boyfriends. Just don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For real.
Exactly. So, playing off of cooking, what is one homemaking task you love and one that you have to gear yourself up for?
Homemaking task that I love, I mean, because, well, this brings up another quote that my pastor's wife, Nancy Wilson, brought up, and I don't remember which Puritan said it, but it is, the highway to comfort is to mind comfort less and duty more. So I have kind of forgotten the things that I would rather do, because I just jumped to, is this my duty? Don't worry that it would be much more fun to sit down and write that latest plot thing that you just thought about. Don't worry that it would be more fun to take your son to the water park. Duty is like the highway. If you want comfort, focus on duty, and comfort will follow. So, I mean, I like cooking for my husband. He's very appreciative of the good food. So if I find a new recipe that I think he will love, I do like that. Like, no, it's not as fun as sitting on a cruise ship sailing through the fjords in terms of just pure frivolous fun, When I have to gear myself up for, or like reading to my son, that's really fun. Because again, I'm super conscious of soul food. I am shaping his character. It's putting away the groceries. I can go shopping. I can load the bags. I can bring them in, but it is then just looking at 20 bags. I'm like, in 10 minutes, this will be done. Do not be a miserable cow. Just put away the groceries. It's just hard for some reason.
I get that.
There's always that one thing that you're just like, yeah, I don't know why this is hard, but it just feels like you have to just really just get your heart right for that.
It's really just the last inch. It's like the last quarter around the running track, or the last deadlift you have to do, or the last putting away the laundry. But that's not as hard for me. But some people find it hard. It's like, yee, now I have to actually put it away. So I have a cat who eats our clothes. So that's high motivation to not leave them lying around. So ever since we got this kitten a couple years ago, that was like, well, I didn't neglect putting away anyway, but even with having a newborn and everything, I was like, I can't leave anything out for even 10 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I have to gear myself up for putting away groceries.
So going back, I want to harp really quick on the duty, because we've mentioned it a few times now. It seems like that's super contrary, though, to the Disney mindset of like, you need to forgo the duty and just, follow your heart, love what you want to love, be selfish, do what you want to do. And so I think, do you think that's why it's super important then to really concentrate on reading good stories? Because the culture is pushing way against doing your duty very heavily.
Yes, it is 1,000%. It needs to be unbearably attractive to your kids. The sight of Errol Flynn doing his duty in the old Robin Hood. Like that should be so much more attractive to them than Moana, following her heart.
Yeah.
And I think you could show your kids Moana with discussion if they're old enough to understand it, and
For sure.
this is where it's wrong. This is where, and let's engage with this. So, our culture is where it is because a bunch of horribly sad, stupid people have been following their heart into horrible, horrible darkness and idiocy. Right. So, having books that make kids love the standard and don't just get them to conform to the standard, but make it attractive and compelling so that when they are facing a moment of just wanting to snark at their sibling or be a pill, and they think, am I being an Edmund or am I being a Eustace, or am I being an Edmund or a Eustace after their conversion? Just like giving them tangible examples of how lovely it is to do your duty. Instead of how the movies don't show you how horrible it is to follow your heart, because it usually turns out the dad was wrong, or whatever it is. Or they say that we would watch, say, a story about a gay romance, not that we would, but if we did, we would see that and go, that is not attractive. But the movie portrays it as attractive, but we still have the eye to be like, that is not fun. That is deep darkness. You are going to be so sad. Anyway, all that. So, it's 100% super important to go from the very beginning, making it attractive to kids to do their duty.
So on a more fun personal note, if your life had a soundtrack, what would be one song on it?
Oh gosh. Okay, there's the sound in my mind. I was always so much more melodramatic and bombastic and Hans Zimmer than my life really is.
Hans Zimmer's great.
What one song? Well, it would depend on who's directing said story of my life and what moment it is. But I would hope in general that it would be somewhat like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have you guys seen that with Ben Stiller? The soundtrack suits the movie perfectly, and it's about a very self-serious guy who learns to actually be somebody, not just imagine that he's somebody. So I feel like who doesn't need at least an element of that lesson? And it's the perfect combination of drama and whimsy and silliness and hilariousness, which I think every life is, even if that self-serious person doesn't realize it. So I would hope The Secret Life of Walter Mitty would show up. But one song that would show up at least in a certain moment, it actually is from the 7th Harry Potter. I think the first of the 7th. It's whenever he goes to Godric's Hollow to visit his parents' grave. Have you guys seen the Harry Potter movies?
I've actually never read it or seen it. So maybe that's
Okay, well, it's a very poignant moment. He's going to visit his parents' graves for the first time. And in the movie, it's not on the whole soundtrack that you will buy. It's on YouTube. There's this song that plays only for a few snatches in the movie. You know how like they will write a whole song, but then you only hear like 10 seconds in the movie. It's this choral piece called My Love Is Always Here. And it's originally just, I looked at the lyrics and it's a lullaby sung by a mom to her son. So it's very appropriate to that scene. You know, he's visiting his parents' grave. But for me, at the moment that I heard it, it just became a personal reminder of God's love for me. And that came at a time when I basically heretofore had not ever realized God's love. I was so very duty, honor, country, all of that, that I thought that's all I need. And yes, God loves me, John 3:16, whatever. But I realized the moment it really hits you, it hits, I think, every Christian, maybe at a different time of their life. God tells the moment that you realize how much God loves you is a watershed moment for every Christian. And so that it just happened to come to me in the middle of writing Forbidden Child, actually. So that I was able to kind of weave that into her so hard bitten, loveless life. But that song from Harry Potter is just beautiful. And no, really anybody knows it. You wouldn't have heard it and thought, oh, that's a soundtrack song. It sounds like just like a pretty hymn. So I actually had it played on violin for my wedding processional. Because again, nobody would have thought, you used Harry Potter for your, like, no, I didn't use the main theme. It was not a cheesy soundtrack thing. It was just one of the prettiest songs I knew.
So really quick, would you recommend, I've heard arguments to not read Harry Potter and I've heard arguments to read Harry Potter. Would you suggest reading it?
Yeah. What are your most compelling reasons not to that you've heard? Maybe they're not yours, but you've heard.
Yeah, so I've heard that because the same dark magic is used on both sides, good and evil, so it's not a good idea to read that. And I've also heard that it's just a really big thriller, and it more so the argument that I've heard to read it is just it's really trendy at the moment.
And gosh, no, both of those are terrible, both on both sides. I would say, yes, it is it's valuable and it's fun. It's not just fun, but it is horribly fun. So I would say I also initially we were told to stay away from it, and I was like 100%. I don't need to read. You know, it's kind of like what was it? Is it the Golden Compass or Golden something? Where I'm like, it literally is like knowingly anti-God witchcraft kind of thing going on. Harry Potter it's sloppy. A Christian would have, or a Christian with categories in their head would have tidied up that element of the story better, but they do not acknowledge where magic comes from, because I don't think J.K. Rowling even really knows or cares. She's just like, it's magic, and some people use it for good and some for evil. Much more like, so like the argument against reading it is sort of like the gun control argument, where it's like, they're so bad, just don't even touch it. And it's like, well, actually, engage with the book. The magic is used by good and ill, just like guns are used for good and ill. And yes, she could have done a better job clarifying the rules, because she will just have weird rules about what makes it bad, like the killing curse is a forbidden curse or something. And I'm like, is it lawful to kill someone though, ever? So let's tidy that up and let's clarify. Yeah. I would have, if I were to have written it, which I never could have, I'm not half as smart or creative, but like I would have said, the good guys are using their magic because it's been given to them the way that God gave it to Moses. Like Moses had the first wizarding duel recorded that we know of. He's literally throwing down with the wizards of Egypt and winning, like Harry against Voldemort, So there I would point to those Christians who are just like immediately they smell magic and are like, we're gone. I'm like, turn on the lights, read with the lights on, and engage with it, see what's wrong about it. The kids tell lies, don't do that. They disobey their teachers in right and wrong ways. Let's talk about that. But like she draws on so many, it's a very Christological story overall, like the 7 books, who Harry becomes and his ultimate victory is so very compelling and so fun. And along the way, she just has really fun adventures. Like each book has its own self-contained plot, but then it also like connects to the overarching story. So I would think if you would just want a fun read, especially as adults like you guys are, like, yeah, sure, read it. You will be able to track with what's wrong. Like, would I hand it to every 9-year-old? No. In fact, I would need to see how Cedar grows up to be like, at what age could I either start reading it to him, or could I say, enjoy this book, here, you're 13 now, you go have fun, or whatever. So it depends on the age of the kid to see like whether they would pick up on the flaws. But I would not say it's so inherently flawed like example, what would you avoid? Like Hunger Games is much more
Yeah.
troublesome, much more troublesome. But even that, I would say to a 16-year-old, I would hope they would be able to read it and engage with it and take away what was compelling and leave the garbage,
Yeah.
So yeah, I would 100% read Harry Potter.
All right, I'm gonna have to do it now. I'm gonna have to go read it.
So
Tell me what you think.
I will.
So, kind of talking about ideas with two sides to the story. A lot of single women today are being pushed to follow the ditch of feminism, to just pursue a career, or they're being told that if they aren't married, they are somehow being useless or unfruitful. What do you think about both of those ditches? And then with those in mind, how would you encourage women not to waste their season of singleness, but to use it with purpose and intention?
Yeah, in my little Moscow bubble, I don't see as much of the feminism. I see much more of that temptation to feel fruitless. And it's not that the world is telling you that, your heart is telling you that. Another great reason not to follow your heart. As far as the feminism goes, like that is like, if I think about raising kids, which now I am, we have one, like I would start Cedar off with just like loving feminine women in movies that portray it well. Like let's watch the old Errol Flynn movies. Let's watch or even Gladiator, feminine, The Patriot, feminine.
Yep.
And then when he's ready, maybe we'll turn on Avengers and let's talk about how Black Widow is not what you want. Like one time I was watching Aquaman, cringe, with my, was she 6-year-old niece, maybe pretty young.
Okay.
But we're watching it and Nicole Kidman comes on screen and she's a goddess. Legit, she's a goddess. But she starts kicking butt with like roundhouse kicks, not like magic and grandeur like a goddess would. She immediately starts doing it the way our modern silly feminism does. And my niece immediately went, okay, I'm her. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm telling your mother so that she can watch. Her mom wasn't there in the room at the time. I was like, she's thinking that's what capability and awesomeness looks like. So I would just like really watch those seemingly harmless stories. I mean, the Avengers were saving the world. What's wrong with that? It's like, yeah. What are the women doing? Let's talk about how that's actually not attractive or realistic.
Right.
I have a husband now. If he does not want to move in the kitchen, I am not moving him. Like he's not to like. It's not like if you're 90 pounds, you can punch your way through a 220-pound bouncer. Like you just can't. Okay, so making sure that that feminism is attractive is one thing that I would do from the get go, in order to ward off feminism or the attraction of feminism. And then as far as the ditch of feeling useless as a single person, really just shut it down and say, who am I listening to? Is this the Holy Spirit talking to me? If it's worrying, it's not from God. If it's you're so this, the accuser, Satan is the one who accuses. So ask God to actually convict you if you are being a useless single person, if you're not being fruitful. But generally women, just because they don't feel loved by a particular man and because they're not surrounded by diapered toddlers, because they're not, because most of their friends are, it's very easy to feel like you are the odd man out. But you also have to ask yourself, and this is a lesson that you would carry through any stage of your life, whatever you're doing. And that is to ask, what is my highest and best use? God has a highest and best use for me as a character. And it might be to be single through my 20s and then get married. It might be to be single forever. It might be to get married at 21 and have triplets. And I'm so overwhelmed. It might be to be married and then widowed and then marry again. It might be whatever it is. Or your husband leaves you and then you can deal with whatever sin you may have had to do with that. Like whatever it is. Like it should not just be my highest and best use is whatever I dreamed my life to be. So if you see your life as a sacrifice on the altar, and God says what it's for, you are a character in a story and you are for something, then that should actually make you very interested. It's like, well, what are these years of singleness for? I'm not spending them. I'm sacrificing them. I'm using them. So ask God to show you, what are you for? Are you for a ton of helpful babysitting? Are you for studying things that you won't have time to if you ever do get married? Are you like, what are you for? You are for so many things. And just ask God to put those in your lap. and to show any selfishness or to take off any blinders that might be hiding those potential duties from you. Like take off any selfishness or any bad assumptions, and then just be ready to lay your life down. And like I said, this will continue to go through whatever stage of life. Say you can't have kids, you get married and you can't have kids, and you're like, what? Like, okay, then that wasn't what you were for. You are for something else. This is not God giving you his second best. You know what I mean? And so just reminding yourself that God's love is perfect. He has not forgotten you. Your life is for a particular purpose, and just be willing for God to use you however he wants to. And then just have fun. I had so much fun. Yes, struggled with contentment, but had so much fun traveling and studying and working at amazing places with amazing Christian people while I was single. And then that allowed me to be calm and content and not frantic to get married when Ben did show up. You know what I mean? If you're discontent and insecure and how God loves you, whether he loves you and whether he cares about you and all that, oh my gosh, you're going to have such a fraught courtship, because your suitor will be left dealing with all of your baggage, because it'll probably come up as huge insecurity against him, because actually you have huge trust issues starting with the Lord. Anyway, it could just be messy. So just make it easier on yourself and learn contentment now.
Yes. Yeah, I think one of the things our parents have told us is like, don't waste your singleness. And I think that's such a good reminder, because you can do a ton when you're single that you can't necessarily do when you're married. And I've also seen there are girls that I've watched that haven't been married and they were super discontent, and then they get married and they're still super discontent. And you're like, it's almost like they idealized marriage in a really weird sort of way. Like that was the ultimate duty as a female, which was really interesting to me, because I just watched the discontentment, like you're saying, in between. And it's been really sad to kind of see that, because it's like you can tell they weren't shown a proper view of what you can do when you are single, and taught to learn contentment in that phase. Contentment,
and then out of your contentment, let industriousness grow. Like out of gratitude, get hustling. Don't get hustling out of some sort of fine. I guess I'm single, so I guess I'll just go do whatever I want. Or I'm just going to frantically do to distract myself that I don't have a husband. You know, there are all sorts of wrong ways to just be busy, be so fiercely busy that you just distract yourself from it. You're just going to burn out and get sad and whatever. So yeah, wherever you go, there you are. So if you are discontent now, you will be discontent unless God teaches you that lesson in some magical interim. But yeah, you're not going to escape your heart, because your heart follows you.
Yeah.
Very true.
So if you could have tea or coffee with any woman from history, who would it be and why?
It should be the mother of some great hero, and I can ask her, how did she raise her son? As far as Corrie ten Boom would be amazing. I think I would just be so embarrassed. I just probably wouldn't even speak, because anything I would say would sound like a complaint compared to her shining example of like all the hardship she went through. And the girl who wrote, is it Darlene, somebody who wrote Evidence Unseen, went through a Japanese concentration camp in World War II because she was a missionary caught up in the World War II scene. Wow. Amazing book. Katie Luther would be a great one, just being the wife and the helper of such an amazing explosive firecracker of a man. That would be fun.
Yep.
So yeah, I actually, because women usually are, there are so many heroines in history. There are. But because they are at home, if they are doing their jobs, they're raising George Washington, they're raising Stonewall Jackson, they're raising. So I would probably just, let's pick a bunch of mothers, Bonhoeffer's mom, or, I would probably start there. I'd have to think carefully before committing to time travel.
Yeah. So what is one trend, whether like a writing trend, fashion trend, design trend, that you just can't get behind, and why?
So this is where I am still reading more widely than I have read before. So I don't tend to read those books. So I don't know that I have off the top of my head a trend that or maybe it's so obvious I'm not thinking about it. Like obviously, I don't write YA, but if I did, I would not get behind the trend of like glamorizing suicide or glamorizing abuse or being the abused girlfriend. Like, but that's not something I just can't get behind. Like that is like 100% no. That's not just like that's on the fence. That's that's so obvious. One thing I just noticed in a writer that I really like, I like Lauren Wolf. She wrote Wolf's Hollow, decent, very, by big decent, I mean very wholesome, not just it was decent. Very wholesome, compelling middle grade story. But I see a little bit more of at least in her writing, and maybe because she is writing, she's big, and it seems like maybe a trend in Hollywood as well, like this huge adoration of the artistic impulse within you. That's your real you. Like the artist is to be prized above all. Like I'm picking up on a little bit here and there, and I tend to read so carefully about a book before I pick it up and read it because I'm not that fast of a reader. I tend to want to throw the book down and go write very quickly. So I am like, let me get a book that will improve me as a writer and give me good ideas. So I don't have like a huge list of the trends, but those would be among them.
So, talking about the reading, is there a book you've read that's just been like the hardest to get through? Like it's either taken longest or just the hardest, to read?
I have yet to finish The Wheel of Time, but it's there when I need it. Like it is so doggone long, and I'm like, they're still going to be on their way to wherever they're going to, and that's very entertaining. I'm like, it's so reliable. I can pick it up. Someone's going to be chasing them and trying to kill them, and I can just. So I haven't picked it up since the very busy summer in which I courted my husband, because who had time for that? That one, like I wouldn't say hard to get through. Tend to be if a book is that kind of hard, I might not finish it. It depends on what makes it hard. If the prose is just bad, or if they promise one thing and then they started writing a different book after the first chapter was so promising. When I was 12, I really wish I didn't have to read Plato's Republic. That was probably the hardest book to get through.
Yeah, that's definitely not an easy one. I started listening to that one, and I was like, "Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to sit down and read this. This requires all my brain power at the moment."
Yeah, I read every other line of every other page. I would turn 2 pages together just to be like, I read it. I consciously scanned the words. I knew basically all the words, kind of. I was 12. But I didn't know the concepts put together. It was just so bad. My teacher apologized for that later. He was like, he was a new teacher.
Oh, okay.
And I was the youngest in the class. It was like a homeschool class, ages like 12. 12 was the very youngest, and it went up to like 17.
Oh, wow.
So of course they're reading. Anyway,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the hardest books to get through.
Wow.
So, what's something that stood out to you recently that has captured the essence of feminine glory?
I really like this. I'm trying to think of a specific thing, but like if you read Rachel Jankovic's books, Yoo-Hoo, and her 2 books on mothering, and her latest No Time to Be Dumb,
It's a great book.
those all of her convictions on, or even Exile by her sister Becca Merkle.
That was good.
I think the glory, like one essence of feminine glory that's becoming realer every day now that we've been married for 2.5 years, is just like trusting your husband is such a feminine virtue, because you are his helper. You are in God's lovely hierarchy. You are equal, but you report to him. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't mean you are inferior. It means that you report to him. And because I read so many military books, that made sense to me. I was like, 100%, like not inferior, but I report to him. He's my boss. And seeing that is like such a feminine virtue, as opposed to what we're shown in Hollywood, which is at best the dominating mother and the beta husband. Like even a decent family friendly series, like I watched the Lois and Superman with Tyler Hoechlin and what's her face, and they're trying, I can tell they're trying to portray a decent, intact family. But Superman, after saving the world and being all kinds of big and brawny out in the universe, comes back home, and the wife is like, okay, so I'm going to do this, and I think you should do that. And he goes, okay. And I'm like, yes, there are times when I'm like, hey, babe, Cedar's going to wake up from a nap, or I think we should do this. 100%. There are conversations that include those elements, but they were way too much of the game plan was being made by this wife. And the husband was like, all right. And I was like, let's just reverse that. I would be so happy if she was the one thing like, yep, that's what we're going to, okay, that's what we're going to do. So I think that is becoming more real every day. The fact that submission, it doesn't feel like glory, but it is glorious because God will glorify it. And if you think about, if you've seen a submissive wife and compare her to an insubmissive wife, just in general, you don't have to know the particulars or the specifics, but like you can tell one is beautiful and one is not, and there's probably other sin entangled with it, not just in submission. But God does not glorify lack of submission. So I would say seeing the glory in submitting in moments when it feels wrong or petty or just unnecessary, and hopefully not just categorically bad, but just sometimes, usually it's just the petty stuff. It's like, that's just not necessary. Why would I have to? Why do I really,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a late conviction, ongoing conviction.
We were recently, it's interesting that you bring that up, because we do a yearly Bible reading plan, and so it goes through the entire year chronologically through the Bible, and we've been doing it for several years now, but we're on now the Kings, and so we were recently going through Athaliah and Jezebel, and they clearly were like the dominating female, and it's just so like you read that and you're just like, oh, I just really do not like her at all. It's clear, like, it's a terrible character. It's a terrible person in this story. And you just way prefer somebody like an Abigail that heroically did her duty, but then instill submission to her husband. And it's just the difference there of like how you can even tell in scripture the different characters that God is presenting before you of like, this is clearly, you're supposed to hate this character and you're supposed to love this one.
Yeah. The whole Athaliah, I don't think Athaliah had a husband, but Jezebel and Ahab. Mm-hmm. Ahab, yeah. It's such a Meghan Markle, Prince Harry combo right there. Just the worst. But going back to Abigail, the interesting thing there is she is submissive, but not directly to her husband. Mm-hmm. And this is where it gets important. She is submissive to God. And that submission requires that she defy her husband. So she does not simply defy her husband because she's following her own heart, which is why it looks submissive, which is why I think you summed it up as saying she's submissive to her husband. But I'm like, not quite. She's submissive to God, therefore, quietly, respectfully defies her husband and basically goes behind his back. Yeah. And is like, but also, if you think about it, she's also defying a David on the warpath, a David who is alpha to a team of Avengers men. Like he is like, this is no light thing that she is doing to go up and tell David, please don't do this. My husband is a fool, blah, 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 blah. I can't remember her exact words, but like, and that's where her glory comes from, because she has submitted first to God, and therefore I will do my duty, let the consequences come as they may. And that is so glorious. And she's not kicking butt. She is just being so dutiful and obedient and respectful, and that God uses that so powerfully. And then she gets to be a queen. Yay.
Yeah. It's Toby Sometimes I think was talking about that dynamic in a recent cross politic about like the 20 things you should do before you're 40 or 20 things you should know before you're 40. Anyway, and about how like God gave the command to the husband to love your wife as Christ loved the church, and then like how that can be, I guess, a bit more challenging at times, and then the wives are supposed to submit to their husbands even when it's like he's gonna stumble and make mistakes, but still joyfully and do your duty and submit to him, even though, as we were saying earlier, you may not always know the next steps that are gonna take. If
one helpful way that I looked at it, partly because I took dancing, we did the whole Virginia reel ball dancing, and I did Irish dance, which is not partner dancing, but I did enough partner dancing to realize the horror of a girl trying to lead, which was definitely a struggle of mine because I'm strong and opinionated and good at dancing. So, you had to really watch that. But if you picture a girl who is maybe a better dancer, or at least better dancer for this split second. Let's say that she can see her husband or boy or her man is leading her towards the wine table or towards stepping on someone's toes. If she's all, if as long as you're not about to run over a small child, like if she's all like, no, 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 it's just so ugly. But if he bumps her into the table, and that was clumsy, he should have seen it coming, but she is following, and she graciously is like, I will follow you right back out of this mistake. You waltzed into it, let's walk right back out of it. How much more beautiful is that to have a wife who conducts herself as if she's dancing with her husband? And you can make basically another way to say respect, as I realized, I don't think I read this anywhere. It was just something I realized after years of actually being in the workplace. That was where a lot of respect was hammered into me, is make the man, your boss, your husband, whoever the boss is, look good. So if that dancer is all like, oh, hey, babe, we're about to hit the, oh, no, you almost ran right into the line and you almost hit this person. You almost hit that. Like, just go over there. It's like, how awful. How awful is that?
Yeah.
Like, just go be a wallflower. Just go. But if she's like, does it matter? Like, covering the mistake, how much, one, you're going to boost your husband's confidence. It's like, oh, my wife will follow me so graciously, and she will not get onto me beyond what is reasonable. Like, you can tell your husband, I think, look, I have a suggestion for next time or whatever. Like, you should totally talk to your husband about that. But like, if he's going to be a much better dancer if he knows you're going to follow him and make him look good or as good as possible, no matter what. And that kind of also answers your question of like, that is a real feminine glory of realizing, make your husband look good. I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying, well, he's secretly a pervert and I'm not telling anybody. Like, I'm not saying that, but like, make him look good.
Be the crown.
So make him look good. Be the crown. And this also goes to, especially as you're single and you guys might be working, or anybody who's in the workplace. Like, I still have a boss in the workplace. Let's say that they forgot an appointment or they forgot something. They forgot a deadline. You step in and make them look good as much as you should, which is, I will remind you next time. I will bring that to your attention next time. You take as much responsibility as you can and make them look good. You do not berate them. You do not lecture them. You do not point the finger at them. Let them take the responsibility, and you just step in and be like, how can I make them look good while not I'm not lying. I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying gloss over. I'm just saying be like Princess Kate. Princess Kate and William, if you guys all see them on social media, if he were to do something like stumble or make a gauche mistake or something, she can make him look good or bad. And her job is to make him look good. And then she looks good.
Yes. They're such a handsome couple.
They are.
They're so fun.
All right. Well, Gwen Newell, this has been a very fun interview, and I can't believe it's already over. But we want to thank you very much for coming on the podcast. We really enjoyed it. And we will see you guys next time on the Feminine Glory podcast.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.